Thomas Gift, director of the Center on U.S. Politics at University College London, and good to see you. Mr. Hurd there, he was certainly booed off that stage in a hurry. You know, many predicted that this would happen, but the way that the Republicans, the GOP, have rallied around Trump after charge, indictment after indictment, do you believe that there is any secret sauce, secret formula to trying to break his stranglehold on the party?
I don't. And I do think that the reaction to Will Hurd's comments are about as predictable as you can get. You know, there are really two things that you can't lecture the Republican Party leaders on in 2023, and that's Donald Trump and the truth. So doing both at once, saying that Trump's only running to stay out of jail and that the truth hurts, it almost seems like Hurd was trying to elicit a negative response. Hurd is kind of a peripheral candidate, and so he can stand up there and grandstand without much concern. The whole point of his campaign, like Asa Hutchinson and maybe one or two others, is to kind of make a point. But as you're suggesting, for viable Republicans who are actually trying to compete for the nomination, you can see why there's been such a reluctance to challenge Trump head on, because you're going to get put through the ringer for doing it, which is probably one reason why Chris Christie didn't show up last night. He knew his critiques of Trump wouldn't go over with a crowd of party activists, and he was right. But at the same time, if you can't attack Trump and you can't be nice to Trump and still make inroads, it almost makes it impossible for any other alternative candidate to emerge as really viable here.
Well, and that was my next question. As much as Chris Christie can read the room and know he shouldn't have been in that room if all he was going to do was attack Trump, didn't they learn that in the 2016 primary race, that somebody needs to attack him or he will just become the nominee, period?
Yeah, and I think maybe there are a lot of candidates who are just vying for second place, basically a vice presidential nod. I do think that you see some change in posture from Ron DeSantis in particular, and maybe that's just out of desperation because what he has been doing up until this point certainly hasn't been resonating with Republican voters. You know, he's been trying to make this argument about electability, essentially saying, look, you know, I understand your concerns. I know you're upset. I even realize that some of you might prefer a second Trump term, but I'm the candidate that can win. I think the problem with that is that the right-wing base isn't much swayed by the electability argument. That's more something that resonates with party elites and donors. And two, DeSantis has gotten off to such a poor start, both with his slippage in the polls and turmoil within his campaign, that his whole argument about competence, I think, is hard to take to voters persuasively, which is one reason why I think we're starting to see maybe a search for Trump alternatives. Vivek Ramaswamy has really made some notable improvements in the polls of late. I think some are also looking to Tim Scott, maybe as an anti-Trump candidate, just because he's a more effective foil. He's a lot more positive, a lot more optimistic, and sort of doesn't drive in that same Trump lane. But it's going to be hard for any candidate to really compete here.
Yeah.